I don't think we're compatible long term. I was choosing between water and electricity while she bought a $200 dress, so I gave her 30 days to leave. Okay, Reddit, I'm completely lost here and need some reality checks because honestly, I can't tell if I'm being a total dick or if I'm finally standing up for myself. So my ex Sarah, 26F, has been living with me, 29M, for like 10 months now. She moved in after losing her job back in Denver, and it was supposed to be temporary, maybe 2 months tops while she got her shit together. I figured I'd help out with rent and bills since that's what you do for someone you care about, right? Well, those 2 months have turned into almost a year, and I'm basically broke at this point. Don't get me wrong, Sarah tried it first. She was applying everywhere, going to interviews, the whole deal. But every single job had some major problem. The retail place didn't pay enough, the office job had red flags, the restaurant gig was too stressful. When she finally took this customer service position, I thought we were golden. Nope. She'd call out sick like twice a week, always had anxiety or the manager was being mean or whatever. But then she'd be totally fine an hour later wanting to go grab dinner somewhere. Look, I get that mental health is real, but something felt off about the timing. Here's where I'm probably the idiot. I kept covering everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, you name it. I work construction management so I make decent money, but not support two adults forever money. I'm behind $4,200 on my house payments. Both my credit cards are maxed. Last month I had to borrow money from my brother just to keep the lights on. Meanwhile, I'm eating fucking ramen every day while Sarah orders takeout because she doesn't feel like cooking. The moment everything clicked was 3 weeks ago. I'm sitting there with a calculator trying to figure out which bill to pay first when Sarah walks in with Target bags. Shows me this $200 receipt for some dress because she needed retail therapy. While I'm literally choosing between electricity and water. That's when she hits me with, "Actually, Marcus, I don't think we're compatible long term, we should probably break up." I was shocked, but honestly, part of me was almost relieved, like maybe this would force us both to figure our lives out. But then came the real kicker. I hope we can stay friends though, and obviously I'll need time to find a place, so I was thinking I could crash here a few more months, maybe 6. I'll help out when I can, but you know how tight money is for me right now. I just stared at her. She breaks up with me but wants to keep living in MY house, eating MY food, using MY everything while contributing absolutely nothing. And she said it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I told her she needed to move out. Not like immediately because I'm not a monster, but within a reasonable time frame. She got all hurt and shocked like I'd suggested something crazy. I can't believe you'd kick me out when I'm struggling. I thought you actually cared about me. And that's what's fucking with my head. I do care about her. That's why I've been slowly going broke for almost a year. But she just ended our relationship, and somehow I'm still supposed to be her financial safety net. My friend Tony thinks I'm being completely reasonable. My coworker Lisa says I'm being too harsh and should give her more time. My brother wants to know why I didn't kick her out months ago. Honestly, I kept thinking she'd get her act together, that things would improve, that we'd work it out. But we're not working anything out anymore. She made that decision. So why am I still expected to bankroll someone who doesn't even want to be with me? Sarah's been doing this passive-aggressive thing for 3 weeks now where she barely talks to me but makes these comments about how some people abandon you when you need them most. Like, I get that she needs help, but I'm drowning here and she doesn't seem to give a shit. The worst part is I keep wondering if I'm being a vindictive asshole. Like maybe I'm just hurt about the breakup and taking it out on her. Maybe she really is doing her best and I'm being unfair. I've never dealt with anything like this before. So what do you think, Reddit? AITA for wanting my ex out of my house after she dumped me but expects to keep living here for free. Or should I suck it up and let her stay until she's ready to leave? Because right now I feel like I'm losing my goddamn mind. Update 1. Hey Reddit, back with an update that's honestly making me question everything I thought I knew about my relationship. First off, thanks for all the responses on my original post. I've tried having the conversation with Sarah 3 separate times now, and each time the same thing happens. Last Tuesday was typical. I sat her down and said, "Sarah, I'm behind on my mortgage. I need you to contribute $400 a month or start looking for a place." She got this wounded look, tears started welling up. I thought you loved me, Marcus. Why are you doing this to me when I'm already struggling? And just like that, I melted, started backtracking immediately. I do love you, I just meant. I'm doing my best, she whispered. I never thought you'd keep track of every dollar like this. 20 minutes later, I'm apologizing for being insensitive. Every single time. The pattern is always identical. She'll improve for exactly 1 week. Suddenly, she's applying to jobs again, helping with dishes, being super affectionate. Then slowly, over the next few days, she slides back to the same behavior. It's like clockwork. What's really messing with me is realizing how she does it. Several people in my comments mentioned this. She doesn't get angry or defensive. Instead, she gets this hurt look and makes me feel like I'm kicking someone when they're down. She never actually says she can't afford to contribute. She just makes me feel like a monster for asking. I think I need to explain something I didn't mention in my first post. My parents had this absolutely brutal divorce when I was 12. Screaming matches, throwing things, using me as a messenger between them. I spent years trying to keep the peace, walking on eggshells, doing whatever it took to avoid conflict. Sarah figured this out somehow. She's really good at making me feel like I'm being the unreasonable one. My brother David pointed out something that hit me like a truck. He said, Marcus, in all these conversations where she promises to do better, has she ever actually said she can't contribute more money? Or does she just make you feel bad for asking? I thought about it. Holy shit, he's right. Sarah never says she's broke. She never shows me her bank account or explains where her money goes. When I asked her to pay $300 a month toward expenses, she didn't say, I don't have $300. She said, I'm hurt that you'd change the rules when I'm already struggling. That's not the same thing, not even close. So I started paying attention, and the things I'm noticing are kind of blowing my mind. Last week she mentioned grabbing coffee with her friend Emma. That's $6 right there. She bought expensive shampoo instead of using the generic stuff I get. Another $12. She ordered lunch delivery on Tuesday because she didn't feel like making a sandwich. $18 with tip. None of these are huge expenses, but they add up. More importantly, they show she has money for things she wants. She just doesn't think she should have to spend it on boring stuff like rent or groceries. The real wake-up call came when I changed the Wi-Fi password. I wasn't trying to be petty, I was looking at cutting expenses, and realized I'm paying $80 a month for internet that she uses more than I do. When I told her she'd need to chip in half if she wanted the password, she didn't say she couldn't afford it. She got quiet and sad. I'm disappointed that you're nickel and dimming me like this. But then she had the $40 transferred to me within 2 hours. Not next week, not when she figured out her budget. 2 hours. She had the money. She'd always had the money. She just didn't want to pay. I'm starting to realize that our entire relationship might have been built on me being afraid of her disapproval. Not her anger, her disappointment. She never yells or threatens or manipulates in obvious ways. She just withdraws, gets quiet, makes me feel like I'm being mean and unreasonable until I cave. The thing is, it's working less well now. Maybe because we're not together anymore, or maybe because you guys helped me see the pattern, but I'm not immediately rushing to fix her feelings when she gets sad about my boundaries. Last night she mentioned that her friend Jessica offered her a couch to crash on, but it would be really hard to start over somewhere new. She was clearly waiting for me to say, no, don't go, we'll figure something out. Instead, I said, that sounds like it could be a good opportunity for you. She looked shocked, like genuinely surprised that I didn't immediately offer to solve her problem. I'm not gonna lie, Reddit. This is scary as hell. Part of me still wants to take care of her, to make sure she's okay, to be the good guy who doesn't abandon people. But I'm also starting to see that maybe taking care of her has been hurting both of us. She's never had to develop real independence because I keep catching her when she falls. I think I'm finally ready to ask her to leave. Not because I hate her or want revenge, but because this situation isn't working for either of us. I'm drowning financially, and she's not growing as a person. The plan is to give her 30 days notice this weekend. I've been documenting our conversations and researching tenant rights just in case things get messy. My therapist says I need to prepare responses for when she tries the usual tactics, have my points written down so I don't get derailed by tears and guilt trips. I'm terrified she'll cry and I'll cave again, but I think I need to try. Like you Tough Love 2024 said in the comments, I need to sit with the discomfort of someone being disappointed in me instead of immediately trying to fix it. Wish me luck. I'll update you guys on how it goes. Update 2. Reddit. I'm back and honestly feeling like I'm in some weird psychological thriller where I can't trust my own judgment anymore. So I gave Sarah the 30-day notice like I said I would. Spent the whole week beforehand psyching myself up, writing down talking points, preparing for tears and manipulation. My therapist even helped me practice responses to her usual guilt trips. The conversation went nothing like I expected. I sat her down last Sunday morning and said, "Sarah, I need you to find somewhere else to live by the end of the month. This arrangement isn't working for either of us anymore." She didn't cry, she didn't get upset. She just looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before, like she was disappointed but not surprised. Then she said, "Okay, I figured this was coming." That was it. No tears, no "I thought you loved me," no promises to do better, just acceptance. I was so prepared for a fight that her calm reaction actually threw me off more than crying would have. I found myself almost wanting to take it back to say we could work something out. But I managed to stick to my guns and told her I'd help however I could with the transition. "That's okay," she said. "I've got it handled." And apparently she does. Over the past 6 weeks, I've watched Sarah transform into this completely different person. She's been actively apartment hunting, reached out to 3 different friends about temporary housing, and even started picking up extra shifts at some part-time job I didn't even know she had. Wait, what? A job I didn't know about. Turns out Sarah's been working at this boutique downtown for the past month. Not full-time, but enough to make decent money. When I asked why she never mentioned it, she just shrugged and said, "You never asked, and it wasn't really relevant to our situation." Our situation. Like she was talking about a business arrangement, not a relationship. The more I watch her handle this move, the more I'm realizing how capable she's always been. She found an apartment in 2 weeks, a nice 1-bedroom place that she can apparently afford on her own. She's been systematically packing her stuff, organizing logistics, even coordinating with a moving service. This is the same person who couldn't manage to contribute $300 a month to household expenses for 10 months. Here's what's really messing with my head. Our dynamic has completely changed, and not in the way I expected. Sarah's not cold or hostile, she's just indifferent. She's polite when we interact, but there's zero emotional investment. It's like living with a courteous roommate who's counting down the days until they leave. Last Tuesday, I came home to find her cooking dinner. Real dinner: chicken, vegetables, the works. My first instinct was to ask if she made enough for 2, like I always used to. But before I could say anything, she looked up and said, "I'm meal prepping for the week. There's leftover pizza in the fridge if you want something." Not mean, not passive-aggressive, just matter of fact. It hit me that she's been taking care of herself this whole time. She just wasn't taking care of us. The weirdest part is how this is affecting me. I thought I'd feel relieved, vindicated, maybe even a little smug about being right. Instead, I feel empty. Like I've been playing this game where I was the responsible one and she was the helpless one, and suddenly she's revealed that she was never actually playing. My friend Tony came over last weekend and couldn't believe the change. "Dude, she seems more put together now than when you were together," he said. "It's like she was just coasting before." That word hit me hard, coasting. I've been thinking about what being said in my last post about enablers, and enabled people getting trapped in these cycles. I think Sarah wasn't maliciously manipulating me, she was just taking the path of least resistance. Why stress about money and responsibility when someone else will handle it? Why develop coping skills when someone else will manage your emotions for you? And I was so invested in being needed that I never questioned whether she actually needed me or if I was just convenient. The financial stuff is still a mess, by the way. I'm still behind on everything, still paying off debt, still eating ramen more often than I'd like. But at least now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. My mortgage company worked out a payment plan, and without Sarah's expenses, I should be caught up in about 8 months. What's harder to fix is this weird sense of purposelessness. For almost a year, my entire life revolved around managing our situation, worrying about money, trying to motivate Sarah, walking on eggshells. Now that she's handling her own life, I don't know what to do with myself. My therapist says this is normal, that people in codependent relationships often feel lost when the dynamic changes, even when the change is positive. She's been helping me figure out what I actually want for myself, separate from taking care of someone else. It's harder than it sounds. Sarah's moving out this weekend. She asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime after she settled, to talk about everything. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. Part of me wants closure, wants to understand what the hell happened between us. But another part of me thinks maybe some questions don't need answers. Like several people mentioned in my comments, maybe the point isn't to figure out if she was consciously manipulating me or just being thoughtless. Maybe the point is that it doesn't matter, the result was the same either way. I keep thinking about what my brother David said. The real question isn't whether Sarah's a bad person, it's why you stayed in a situation that was making you miserable for so long. I'm still working on that answer. 2 more days and she'll be gone. I thought I'd be counting down the hours, but honestly, I'm kind of dreading the quiet. This house is going to feel really empty, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe I need to learn how to fill my own space instead of letting someone else's chaos take up all the room. I'll update you guys once she's moved out and I've had some time to process everything. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. Update 3. Hey Reddit, final update here. Sarah moved out 2 months ago, and I've had some time to process everything. This is going to be long because there's a lot to unpack. The actual move-out day was anticlimactic as hell. Sarah had everything organized like a military operation. Movers showed up at 8 a.m., she had everything packed and labeled, and by 2 p.m. she was gone. No dramatic goodbye, no last-minute emotional scene. She just handed me her key and said, "Thanks for everything, Marcus. I hope things work out for you." That was it. 10 months of my life, thousands of dollars in debt, and it ended with a polite handshake. I thought I'd feel this huge sense of relief, but instead I just felt hollow. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in ways I'd never noticed before. I kept expecting to hear her moving around upstairs or calling out to ask if I wanted anything from the kitchen. The silence was deafening. The first few weeks were rough. I'd come home from work and just sit in my living room, not sure what to do with myself. I realized how much of my daily routine had revolved around managing our situation, checking bank accounts, worrying about bills, planning conversations about money. Without all that chaos, I didn't know how to fill the time. My therapist helped me understand that I'd been using Sarah's problems as a distraction from my own life. As long as I was focused on fixing her situation, I didn't have to think about what I actually wanted for myself. Pretty fucked up when you think about it. About 3 weeks after she left, I ran into Sarah at the grocery store. She looked good, really good, confident, put together, like she was thriving. We chatted for a few minutes. She told me about her new apartment, mentioned she was thinking about going back to school, seemed genuinely happy. And I felt like shit. Not because I wanted her back, but because seeing her doing so well made me realize how much I'd been invested in her needing me. Some part of me had expected her to struggle without my support, to realize what she'd lost. Instead, she seemed more herself than she'd ever been when we were together. That night, I called my brother David and had probably the most honest conversation of my life. I think I wanted her to fail, I told him. I think I was more invested in being her savior than in actually helping her. David was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Marcus, do you remember when Mom and Dad were getting divorced? You used to follow Mom around the house trying to cheer her up, bringing her tissues when she cried, doing extra chores so she wouldn't have to worry about anything." I did remember. I was 12 and convinced that if I could just be good enough, helpful enough, maybe she wouldn't be so sad all the time. "You've been doing the same thing with Sarah," David said. "Trying to fix someone else's problems so you can feel valuable." Fuck. He was right. I've been in therapy twice a week since then, working through this pattern. Turns out I've been doing this my whole life, gravitating toward people who need help, then getting resentful when they don't appreciate my sacrifices the way I think they should. My therapist calls it codependency with a hero complex, which sounds way less noble than I thought I was being. The financial recovery has been slow but steady. Without Sarah's expenses, I've been able to catch up on my mortgage payments and start chipping away at the credit card debt. I should be completely caught up by next spring. I'm eating actual food again instead of ramen, which is nice. But the emotional recovery has been harder than I expected. I keep catching myself looking for someone to rescue. There's this woman at work, Jennifer, who's going through a messy divorce, and I found myself offering to help her move, to lend her money, to basically repeat the same pattern. I had to consciously step back and ask myself why I was so eager to get involved in her problems. The answer wasn't pretty. I like feeling needed. I like being the good guy who steps up when others won't. It makes me feel important, valuable, like I matter. But it's not actually about helping people, it's about feeding my own need to be seen as indispensable. About 6 weeks ago, Sarah texted asking if I wanted to grab coffee and talk. I almost said yes immediately, but my therapist suggested I think about what I was hoping to get from that conversation. Did I want closure, an apology, for her to acknowledge how much I'd sacrificed? Honestly. I wanted her to tell me that she'd made a mistake, that she realized how good she'd had it with me. I wanted validation that I'd been the good guy in our story, but that's not what closure is supposed to be about. So I texted back and said I wasn't ready for that conversation yet, maybe someday in the future. She responded with, "I understand. Take care of yourself, Marcus." No guilt trip, no manipulation, no attempt to change my mind, just respect for my boundary. It was probably the healthiest interaction we'd ever had. I'm not dating anyone right now, and I'm not planning to for a while. I need to figure out how to be in a relationship without trying to fix the other person. My therapist says I need to learn the difference between supporting someone and enabling them, between being generous and being a doormat. It's harder than it sounds. My instinct is still to jump in and solve problems for people I care about, but I'm learning to ask myself, am I helping them, or am I helping myself feel important? Usually it's the second one. The house still feels empty sometimes, but I'm starting to fill it with things I actually want instead of just reacting to someone else's chaos. I bought a decent couch, started cooking actual meals, even got a dog a rescue named Murphy who's currently asleep on my feet as I type this. Murphy doesn't need me to fix his problems. He just needs food, walks, and someone to throw his tennis ball. It's refreshing as hell. I know some of you wanted this story to end with Sarah getting her comeuppance or me finding someone better who appreciates me properly. But real life isn't that neat. Sarah wasn't a villain, she was just someone whose coping mechanisms were incompatible with my well-being. And I wasn't a hero, I was someone using generosity to avoid dealing with my own issues. We were both messed up in ways that made each other worse. The real victory isn't that I won or that she learned her lesson. It's that I'm finally starting to understand why I stayed in a situation that was making me miserable for so long. And more importantly, I'm learning how to build a life that doesn't require someone else's problems to give it meaning. So Reddit, to answer my original question. No, I wasn't the asshole for wanting my ex out after she broke up with me and expected to keep living rent-free. But I was an asshole to myself for letting it go on so long. Thanks for helping me see that. Sometimes you need outside perspective to realize you're drowning. I'm still working on swimming, but at least now I know which way is up.